The eldest son and his wife, John and Sarah, arrived late for the funeral of the second son, Kevin, without showing any shame. When they found me, red-eyed from crying, Sarah ran over joyfully. "Hi, Emma. Did you know that siblings have no rights of inheritance?" "I know. I will inherit Kevin's legacy as his parent." Sarah inexplicably showed me Kevin's passbook and seal with smiling as I answered, "Sorry, but I've already used $70,000. "What? Why?" "It's because I had his will that he would leave his property to his eldest daughter-in-law. I actually asked him to draw it up when he was drunk the other day. I never thought he would pass away so soon after making it. So I'll get your house and land." I was so appalled that I was lost for words. We're in Kevin's funeral, no matter how I think about it. She has obviously no common sense, and I'm overwhelmed. What in the world is she saying? "That's why, Mom. Sorry, but you need to leave there as soon as possible. Sarah and I are going to live in that house. You just renovated it, and it's beautiful now. I'm super excited." What John and his family said and their attitude makes me tremble with anger. Even when they lost their own family, they don't shed a tear at all and squander money with pleasantly. I can't help but doubt their humanity as a person. At that moment, I remember something very important. I triumphantly stared at John and Sarah's back with going back home very excitedly. I hope they have some pleasant dreams and feel happy at best. I'll absolutely ignore them even if they cry and ask me for help later. My name is Emma. I'm 82 years old and a housewife. After graduating from high school, I worked at a printing company and met my husband, who was a primary school teacher through a friend's introduction. I was attracted to his personality, and we started dating, and then got married. My husband always wore black-rimmed glasses and was as hardworking as he looked like. He visited the homes of students who were often absent from school many times to listen to them, and gave extra lessons to children who had difficulties with study. He was an extremely enthusiastic teacher, as if he was the one you see on TV dramas. I supported my husband and raised our 2 sons while I was working at the printing company. When my husband passed away because of illness, my children smoothly arranged his funeral and dealt with other matters. That made me feel their growth. John, my eldest son, got a job at a major enterprise after graduating from the university. My younger son, Kevin, who followed his father's footsteps as he admired his father, was well liked by his students and happily told me about his school life happily when he came home. Both of them seemed to enjoy their work so much that they showed no signs of getting married even over turning 40. When I was thinking that they were their choices, John called me and said, "I'd like to introduce my fiancée, so I'll bring her this weekend." I was quite surprised, but also so happy that I wanted to jump for joy. I welcomed John's fiancée with excitement and nervousness at the weekend, but I was shocked at her. It was because the woman who came with him was unfriendly and looked very plain. Even though they wanted to get married and came to greet us, she had no accessories or makeup. She would be better than a showy one though. Her long black hair, which was tied back, and her cream-colored outfit were impressing calm, but it didn't fit her. Even when I talked to her, her facial expression didn't change, and she spoke in a low voice, so I could barely hear her greetings. I couldn't help but get a very gloomy impression and got worried that this woman might make their everyday life solemn like a funeral. But she is the woman John chose. It seems cruel to object here and above all his age. I'm not sure if he'll have other chances to marry. After the conflict, I decided to accept their marriage. John and Sarah are living in a new house in the same city, and they often visited me as they were worried about me living alone. Sarah let me in little by little through talking to her with a smile every time we met. Eventually, she even got used to me and cooked in my kitchen. She had a cooking license, so all kinds of cuisine like Japanese, Western, and Chinese she made were as delicious as if they were served in a restaurant. When I praised for her dishes, "You can open a restaurant," Sarah smiled bashfully. She still had a plain vibe, but she was cute when she smiled. John looked lovingly at her smiling face. John and Sarah seemed to get along well, and I thought I would also be able to keep a good relationship with them. Even though her hair was into the dishes a few times, I pretended not to see, because I didn't want to break the good rapport we built with her by nitpicking. But my hopes were trampled on so easily, straight away. Sarah always sent me famous baked sweets on Mother's Day, my birthday, and on other occasions like midsummer and year-end gifts. I was proud of having such a good daughter-in-law. I tasted something odd when I was having the sweets she gave me with a cup of tea. I wondered why it tastes so off, even though this is a highly rated store and I checked the Best By date. Unbelievably, the Best By date was more than a year ago. I immediately called her to ask where she bought it, and Sarah just laughed and answered, "Oh, I'm sorry. I mistakenly sent you the older one because I buy the sweets of the shop for myself as well. I'll be careful next time." It seemed that she didn't buy them at the department store and sending them right away. I told her, "What if anything should happen to you? Be careful." But nothing changed the next time. If I bought one for myself, I wouldn't mind having them even if the Best By date was expired for a few days before. But I believe it was inappropriate to send it to others as a gift. When I contacted her again after this happened several times, John took the phone from her. "Mom, don't be hard on Sarah. She sends them for you considerately. We'd sever our family ties with you if you're going to disregard her feelings." I understand. I'm sorry." I apologized, but I was shocked at what John said. From that point on, expired gifts were sent from her, so I threw them away as soon as they were delivered. Gradually, they started saying, "We're busy with work," and John and his wife stopped visiting my house. Since their marriage, John and Sarah had not wanted children, and Sarah had been working full-time as a chef. I kept in touch with my other son, Kevin, who was living alone, but he seemed busy with his work as a teacher and came home for only summer vacation and New Year's vacation. I was also busy with catching up with my friends and learning my hobbies like handcrafting online, so I didn't worry too much and thought, that'll be good as long as they are doing well. Then one day, John called me for the first time in a long time, and he said, "I'll come home because I have good news." I thought he might have been promoted, but when I went to greet them at the door, I had to do a double take at John's appearance. "What? You're John, aren't you? What happened to your clothes?" "Mom, cool, huh? I've changed, you know." He was wearing big black sunglasses, flashy sweater, and jeans with a design on them. Most surprisingly, John, who had always had short black hair, now had pink, long hair. "Mom, guess how much these clothes cost? This sweater was $2,500, and this jeans were $5,000. High-end brands definitely sit well with me. They're the best." "What? That flashy knit is half of your salary?" "No way. And what's with that hair? Why is a 40-year-old man dressed like an idol?" I was so flustered that I hadn't noticed at first, but there were piercings in his both ears, eyebrows, and lips, and he was wearing extravagant rings on his fingers. "Is that outfit okay at work? Is it allowed?" "John, you're a head of department, aren't you?" "Oh, didn't I tell you? We've quit our jobs." John, who dropped such significant news very easily, said with a laugh, seeing that I had lost my words. Sarah told me a great money-making proposal, so I bought a Porsche for her with my retirement payment. I'll never work and enjoy my entire life from now on. I can tell you if you'd like to know, Mom. I rushed out of the entrance before finishing to listening to John till the end. Then, a bright red Porsche, which was out of place in this countryside, was parked in the parking lot of my house. That dazzling emblem was firmly attached. When the woman got out of the car, my jaw dropped. Who might you be? Oh my gosh, Emma! Don't tell me you've forgotten me. This voice. It's Sarah. No doubt about it. But other than the voice, she had changed so much that I wondered if she had switched appearances with someone else. Her long, tied-back black hair had turned blonde and was permed. She used to wear oversized sweater and jeans, but now she was wearing a blue mini dress with a plunging neckline. Her makeup-free, sleepy-looking face had transformed with larger eyes and a fancy impression and brightened by pink lipstick. Her glow skin made her look much younger than 50. It's not just makeup, is it? Did you get plastic surgery? Sarah smiled sensually and approached me, wriggling her body. She tilted her head slightly and grinned at me. John is head over heels for me, so he does everything I ask. If I praise an idol, he tries to imitate them. And when I talked about money-making proposal, he even retired. Also, when I said to him, "Give me your retirement payment," he let me spend it on Porsche and plastic surgery as I wanted. Oh, I was treated to Italian foods at a fine dining restaurant by your son, Kevin, on the other day, by the way. He's quite generous. Seems like he'd save up quite a bit of money. I've made light of him thus far, but I should get closer to him. As I glared at Sarah, she lifted the corners of her lips in a creepy smirk, intertwined her hand with John's arm, and returned to the car. She rolled down the car window, and John smiled and said, "Mom, I'll let you go to an overseas trip when we make a profit. I don't need such a thing. Please work earnestly." You mustn't believe that woman's sweet talk. I know. Think about the country you want to go to, okay? Then John left, making the Porsche's engine roar. I saw him off, feeling full of anxiety. I have no idea why, but bad things kept happening. 2 months after meeting the drastically changed John and Sarah, Kevin passed away due to his chronic illness. The landlord, who felt suspicious of the overflowing mail from the post, entered the room and found Kevin lying dead. I received a call from the landlord and hurried home. Kevin's face was pale, but he looked like he was sleeping. He seemed to have passed away peacefully in his sleep, and his face looked calm. "Kevin! Kevin! This is a lie, right? It's a lie, isn't it? Open your eyes, Kevin." I could do nothing but cling to the cold body of Kevin and continue crying, disregarding the other's eyes. I knew he was going to the hospital, but I had heard that his symptoms were stable recently. I never thought it would suddenly worsen. It's too cruel to pass away before his parent, before me. Kevin lived for only 45 years. As I broke down in tears before Kevin's remains, John and Sarah, whom I had contacted, arrived. Upon seeing Kevin, John grimaced and stood there dumbfoundedly for a while. At first, Sarah was also surprised, but she lifted the corner of her lips into a meaningful smile soon afterwards. Anger welled up at such an imprudent person, and as I glared at her, Sarah pulled John's arm. "John, it's enough. Let's go." Yes." John left, his arm pulled by Sarah. Fortunately, it was the cold winter season, so Kevin's remain was kept clean. It was unlikely to be a criminal matter, so Kevin's remains was returned to us soon afterwards. I tried to ask John to be the chief mourner, but I couldn't get in touch with him at all. As I was a shell of myself, Kevin's cousin, who was close to him, handled all the arrangements, contacting the temple, funeral home, and relatives. I tried to contact Sarah again before the wake began, but again, I couldn't get through. Though they should know there's a call coming, the morning of the funeral came with dissatisfied with it. Kevin's sudden passing was shocking for not only me and our relatives. The children of the class he was in charge of, his former students, and people from the school came one after another to the funeral to see Kevin. Before the funeral, I had heard from Kevin's cousin about Kevin's financial situation. Amidst the swirling a lot of emotions by the scenery I was looking at and what I heard from his cousin, I watched the mourners offering incense. The venue was enveloped in sorrow, with the sounds of sobbing echoing throughout as the ceremony solemnly proceeded. After the funeral, I thanked the attendees from the bottom of my heart. While waiting for the departure of the casket and sharing stories of Kevin outside the hall, the door opened and John and Sarah walked in. Despite it was a funeral, Sarah wore a dress with a deep neckline and a black fur coat, and John was behind her with flashy patterned shirt and pink hair. "Oh, is the incense offering over already? Oh, that's a shame," she said without even a hint of remorse, spotting me with swollen red eyes because of cry. Sarah ran up to me pleasantly. "Emma, did you know that siblings have no right to inherit?" "Yes, I know. I, as his parent, will inherit my son, Kevin's inheritance." As I answered, Sarah inexplicably showed me Kevin's passbook and seal with smiling. "Sorry, I've already used $100,000. "Huh? Why?" "It's because I had his will that he would leave his property to his eldest daughter-in-law. I actually asked him to draw it up when he was drunk the other day. Wow, I didn't expect him to pass away so soon after writing it. Haha. So, I'll get your house and land." I was so shocked that I was speechless. We're in Kevin's funeral, no matter how I think about it. She has obviously no common sense, and I'm overwhelmed. What in the world is she saying? "So, Mom, that's why you need to leave the house as soon as possible. Sarah and I are going to live there. You just renovated it, and it's beautiful now. I'm super excited." Certainly, the house had been changed to Kevin's name when my husband passed away. Therefore, Kevin could have sold it right away if he said so. But a full smile of Sarah made my anger boil. She was talking about inheritance with smiling, without showing a tear regardless of Kevin's passing at the midst of the funeral. Even more so, using it at will, straight away, I doubted her as a person. And what on earth was John doing? He was late to his brother's funeral, with Sarah's thumb, and even let her use his brother's inheritance as she pleased. However, I recall what I had heard from my cousin earlier about Kevin's financial situation. I suppressed my desire to yell and confirmed with Sarah. "You guys have taken all of Kevin's inheritance, right?" "Yes, that's what I'm saying." "We'll get all the insurance money and savings, so not a single penny will come to you, mother-in-law." "Okay, give me 2 weeks. I need time to find a new place to live and make arrangements." "Absolutely. Yay! The prime location near the station is mine." Sarah wiggled around in great joy, completely ignoring the cold stares from the relatives. "Wait, Auntie, are you sure about this?" "It's fine, but instead, I'll cut off ties with them as parent and child." Really? Okay." Naturally, the people there became noisy. I stared at John and Sarah as they triumphantly went home, leaving behind astonished relatives. "Enjoy your pleasant dreams and be happy for now. I'll absolutely ignore them, even if they cry and ask me for help later. After the funeral was over and I returned home, I immediately began looking for a nursing home. Although I'm still healthy now, given my age, I don't know what might happen to me. If given the choice, I thought it would be nice to have a self-reliant facility where I could receive care in case my health deteriorated or something happened. As I searched online, one facility caught my eye. It was located on a hill overlooking the sea and was part of a hotel with a hot spring. Fortunately, there was still room available, so I went to inspect it immediately. The view was even better than in the online pictures, and the building was clean. Above all, the staff were gentle and friendly. I liked it, so I decided on the spot and moved in right away after packing up at home. As time went by, I was gradually recovering from the loss of Kevin. One day, my cell phone rang when I was planting tomato seedlings at a home garden in the rooftop. I removed my gloves and looked at the phone. As expected, it was John. I was expecting him to call, so I was not surprised, but a scream-like voice echoed in my ear. "Mom, please help me." "No, I've already cut ties with you, so you're not my son." "What? Don't say that. Help me. I never thought this would happen." Although I didn't want to tell him my address, I had no choice. I told them to come and talk to me directly and gave them the address of the facility. And John and his companion arrived 2 hours later. They must have been in a great hurry, as both were panting and breathing heavily. I guided them to the guest room, changed the sign to "In use," and closed the door. I told them to sit on the sofa, but they stood with downcast expression, their eyes fixed on me. I knew all the situation, but I deliberately said, "Aren't you living elegantly? You've taken all of Kevin's inheritance after all." There's no way we could be living elegantly. Kevin was up to his neck in debt." As John began to scream, Sarah also started shouting in a shrill voice that was echoing in my ears. "He was prosperous, so there was no sign of this at all. But he was in a credit card debt hell. The land of the house is collateral, and even if we settle with the deposit, there's still nearly $100,000 in the debt left, isn't there?" It seems so. Kevin was consulting with his cousin about this before he died. I said easily, and Sarah grimaced with frustration. "Why is there so much debt? Kevin didn't gamble or invest, did he? The reason for the debt was helping others." "Excuse me? Helping others?" The kind-hearted Kevin gave $1,000 to students who were in trouble with money. He could earn money by himself, so he was willing to take on debt. The deposit was set aside for such students. Kevin also had a vain side. He didn't want to show others that life was tough, so he splurged at times. He was also mindful of his stress as a teacher. That's how the debt continued to grow. "What? Is Kevin an idiot?" John was dumbfounded and collapsed onto the sofa, covering his face with his hands. He muttered in a low voice. He was very much like Dad in personality, but I never thought that would be the cause. Yes, I was honestly relieved that John took over the assets and debts as a gift before death. Otherwise, I would have to take over the debt without fail. If I repay the debt, I will lose all my savings. Life on a pension alone has its tough parts. I have resigned myself to it." "What? You knew all along, and you pushed it onto us?" Sarah sat down forcefully on the sofa and yelled, pounding the table. I stared back at her, unfazed. "Well, you could have refused the inheritance within 3 months of his death. If the two of you had shown some remorse, I might have been a little willing to tell you." "What? You knew your son was in debt, and you're living elegantly in a facility overlooking the sea in your old age. Don't you feel any guilt?" "Oh, how we think alike. I was just about to say the same thing to you. I smiled gently, took a picture out of my pocket, and placed it in front of the two of them. Despite being in an elderly care facility, Sarah, who had been shouting and making a scene, suddenly fell silent at the sight of the photo. John leaned forward to get a good look and froze as he looked at the photo. What? Sarah, you were meeting with Kevin behind my back? The photo showed Kevin and Sarah. Sarah had her arm around Kevin's waist and was looking up at him as if flirting. It was a candid shot for the two, just as they were entering a hotel. Sarah, you! Cheating with Kevin? Sarah began to mumble an excuse, having her eyes shifty, as John looked on her in disbelief, as if unwilling to believe this was true. No, this isn't what it looks like. I was drunk and I just... After hearing this, I silently showed a second photo. It was the one of inside the red Porsche. Sarah and Kevin were snuggling and acting like lovers. I laid out the third, fourth photos in front of John. John was completely dumbfounded, losing both words and energy as he looked at them. As Sarah continued to stammer, I drove the point home. I found out through a private investigator, but it seems you've been involved with Kevin for several years now. There's still plenty of evidence. Shall I bring them out? John slowly raised his face and spoke to Sarah in a whisper. Sarah, it's over. Let's get a divorce. That's fine for me. I've got everything I could from you guys. An old man in dead hell is not suitable for me, and I feel invigorated. I'm the one refusing you. While astonished at Sarah's complete defiance, I spoke up. Just to confirm, you do understand your position, right? Yes? You're going to tell me to take on half of Kevin's debt, right? I don't need the Porsche anymore, so I'll sell it. I'll even pay damages if I have to. That's fine, right? No, that's not it. Your true identity has already been exposed. John makes a face of disgust. Sarah, is there still something you're hiding? I quickly glanced at Sarah, who was sitting right in front of me. She must have recognized something. Her face, made youthful with plastic surgery and makeup, turned pale, and her eyes, outlined with black lines, opened wide. After making her wait more than enough, I informed John, this woman is a marriage scammer, a habitual offender. Huh? Are you kidding? She squeezes her lovers dry of their wealth, then moves on to the next one. You've been living like this, repeating this over and over, right? Isn't that so? While looking at completely unsettled Sarah, I pressed on. You've swindled dozens of people with excuses like a parent's illness or business mistakes, then disappeared. How much money has that amounted to? It's substantial, isn't it? I don't know about that. They just fell for me and freely gave me money. I didn't do anything wrong. If you say so, why not tell them yourself? I don't know if their lawyers will listen to you, though. Emma, you didn't. You told them where I am? Of course, the private investigators are excellent. They found the identities of those you victimized in about 6 months. I'm grateful. Sarah looked at me with demonic eyes. According to the investigators' report, Sarah's victims were the sons of politicians, second-generation CEOs, and other famous figures. They couldn't make a big move for fear of being sniffed out by the media, so it must have taken time to locate Sarah. My husband was a big landowner in the countryside. It was about time for Sarah to cut her losses with the aging John. After a silence, John staggered slowly to his feet. He seemed ready to pounce on Sarah, but the timid and quiet John clenched his teeth and let out a growl-like sound. I believed in you, Sarah. I loved you, including your mysterious past that you never spoke about. But you were that kind of woman. No way. It's your own fault for being deceived. Ugh, my plan is ruined and it's the worst. I was planning to enjoy the rest of my life with the landowner's eldest son, but now it's all messed up because of this old woman. What are you going to do about it? Upon hearing that, I laughed out loud. Really? My condolences. As Sarah was about to leave the room, I decided to be kind one last time and told her, "Oh, by the way, just to let you know, you should give up on the house where you live with John and also the hideaway for your affairs. Both are subject to seizure." Oh no, the worst. Good luck with paying off the debt, then we won't meet again. I laughed from the bottom of my heart, holding my stomach as I watched Sarah leave angrily and violently. Everything has been solved. Why don't you also go home? There's no point of staying in here. As I got up from the sofa to go back to my room, John called out to stop me. Mom, I'm really sorry for everything. I apologize. John got up from the sofa and bowed deeply to me. I'm really sorry for treating you so badly, Mom. I'll definitely divorce that woman. So, I want you to come back home. I want to start over as a family. I looked down at John with cold feelings without any joy at his words and bluntly told him, Huh? Are you planning to have me help pay off the debt by living together? No, that's not what I mean. John half smiled, as if that was exactly what he meant. No way, I refuse. We've already severed our parent-child relationship, so don't contact me ever again. From now on, I won't meet you either. Mom, aren't you being cold? We're family, aren't we? I strongly shook off John's arm that was trying to cling to me and told him clearly, John, Kevin, both brothers, what are you doing? Being deceived by Sarah, such a woman? At your age, even if you apologize now, you can't erase the sin of neglecting Kevin's funeral and donating a fortune. Pay off the debt on your own and reflect on your actions. Mom, please. I left John alone and returned to my room. According to the relatives, when Sarah went back home to retrieve her valuables, she was caught by the victims who were waiting in front of the house. The total of refunds to the victims and Kevin's debt was reportedly a staggering amount, causing Sarah to rant about a life forever pursued by debt repayment. She is now working as a contract employee during the day and tirelessly working in a cabaret club at night and on weekends to pay off the debt. John persistently contacted me, asking to help pay off the debt together, so I blocked him without question. John, who resigned from his company at Sarah's behest, began working at a town maintenance factory and a part-times at restaurants and convenience stores at night to pay off Kevin's debt. Meanwhile, I am living a leisurely and free life in a senior facility with an adjoining hotel. Although not very spacious, I am very fond of my room, which overlooks the sea from a large window in the living room. I enjoy reading, watching movies, doing yoga, knitting, patchwork, and other activities in my own time except for meals. Occasionally talking with fellow residents, growing vegetables and fruits in the rooftop home garden. It's surprisingly busy. When friends visit, they stay in the adjoining hotel and we enjoy fresh seafood while catching up on each other's latest news, which has also become one of my pleasures. I want to spend the rest of my life as freely as possible without bothering others. With such feelings, I'm grateful for my health today. Enjoy my day slowly.